in West Africa, during the time of the empire of Segu, there lived a griot who was a traditional storyteller born into a family of storytellers. His name was Sokufo Seriba. Now let me tell you something about Sokufo Seriba. He wasn't your average everyday griot. No, he didn't only memorize the history of his people, the genealogy. He didn't only know all of the songs or the politics or the constitution of the nation. Sokufo Seriba was creative. What he had done was he had taken Jalia, which was the work of his ancestors, and fashioned it into something that was pleasing to every ear. He played the harp, a chord. But unlike most of us, Sokufo Seriba was not happy with his lot. You see, the king at that time, his name was Dajera, and this is a true story. Dajera used to call Sokufo Seriba to his palace. And when Sokufo Seriba would come, he would come riding a grand white Arabian horse, which Dajera had given him. He would come dressed in the finest of clothing, which, as a king, Dajera was responsible for giving the griot. Now, here was the problem. Sokufo Seriba, although he was rich and owned land that the king had given him and had more gold than any noble, was not a noble. He was a griot, which is one step below being a noble. Everyone has their lot or their responsibility in life. But Sokufo Seriba looked around and he said, you know, I have more gold than most nobles. I have more land than most nobles. I even have more wives than most nobles. I'm just messing with the women, y'all. Why is it that I am not treated like a noble? So one day, Sokufo Seriba went to the king, Dajera, and he said, King, I am going to put my harp down and never sing again. Dajera said, there is no one who can make a harp sing if it does not want to. So Sokufo Seriba smashed his harp against a rock. Now after he had done this, he began to walk around as though he was a noble, but he wasn't a noble. But he began to walk around like that. His chest was poked out. He would flaunt his gold, his cowries, his cattle, his land in front of everyone. Now, one day, his cattle got some sort of a sickness, which passed not only from the cows, but to the sheep, all the way down to the poultry, until one day, all of his livestock had died. Every single last one. Not only that, but for some reason, whenever they planted anything in the ground of Sokufo Seriba's home, nothing would grow there. Now, you might think his situation is getting very bad, and it was, but he began to lose his money trying to pay for more cattle, trying to buy more seed to plant, trying to do all these things until finally he went broke. And after he went broke, he lost another thing, his wife. That's right. She left him for this big, brawny blacksmith with a job. Now, you might think that that is the worst of it, but no. Over time, Sokufo Seriba began to lose his eyesight until one day he went totally blind. Now, to make matters even worse, his dog up and died on him. That was the last straw, y'all. That was the last straw. So Sokufo Seriba called one of his sons and had him bring a gourd, some skin, some horsehair, some different things. And even though he was blind, he sat down and began to fashion his harp. He didn't have to see it. He began to create it. And he did something different with it. And he told his son, tomorrow we go to see the king, Dajera. He had a beautiful harp he had made, even though he was blind. And the next day, his son led him to the gates of the palace. And when he did, the guard stopped him. He said, I come to hold counsel with the king. And they said, who is this dirty old blind man who comes to hold counsel with the king? He said, please, I am a griot. It is my job to sing for the king. So they brought the counselors out. The counselors didn't know what he was. Everyone was looking at him. Nobody knew this was Sokufo Seriba. He looked ragged, torn, as though life had just grabbed him and turned him inside out. They let him in to see the king. And he began to play his harp. He began to sing a totally different song. Because they say when you've experienced life's pain, then you truly know how to sing. And he began to sing. He began to sing to Dajera not only about the history, but about a broken man, a broken heart. Someone who had turned their back on their given craft, their given art, their given way. It was at that point that a tear came to Dajera's eyes. And he realized the man standing before him was Sokufo Seriba. He told Sokufo Seriba, you have sunk this low. I will now bring you back. And he not only gave Sokufo Seriba more cattle, more gold, he gave him an entire village and told him, you will rule this village. You have learned what it takes some a lifetime and some never learn. You see, there's a proverb, it says, although the new broom sweeps really well, the old broom knows the corners. Dajera had seen that Sokufo Seriba learned the corner.